How does a 34-year-old degenerate go from this to this? Well, you're about to witness a whole new world of reincarnation fantasy. So, without too much yapping, here's the entire story of Mushoku Tensei so far. In the first episode, a 34-year-old, hopeless, helpless, jobless man meets an abrupt end courtesy of a speeding truck. And instead of fading away into nothingness, he wakes up reborn in a fantasy world as a baby named Rudeus Greyrat, or Rudy for short. Now, a man in his 30s reincarnating as a baby sounds kinda sus, not gonna lie. For starters, he keeps all his memories from his previous life, including the regrets of dying a virgin and other failures that haunted him. Determined not to waste this second chance, Rudeus resolves to live differently this time. He's born to Paul Greyrat, a skilled but reckless swordsman, and Zenith, a gentle healer. Rudeus does some weird stuff like this early on.
I'm a big fan of her talents.
Which may seem harmless at first, until you remember that this is a freaking 34-year-old dude. With the mind of an adult in a child's body, Rudeus learns to read at an absurdly young age and soon begins experimenting with magic. That's when his true talent begins to show. He can cast spells instantly, without chanting them out first, something even experienced mages struggle to do. Seeing his potential, Paul and Zenith hire an adventurer mage named Roxy Magurdia to teach him properly. A socially awkward Roxy is skeptical at first. She's been asked to tutor a literal toddler after all. But one demonstration of Rudeus's magic is enough to convince her that he's no ordinary kid. As the family welcomes Roxy into their home, Rudy makes a quiet promise to himself. This life is his redo, and he plans to take it seriously. No more running away, no more wasted years. This time, he will work hard, grow strong, and build a life he won't regret. That's a pretty nice setup episode we got right there. In episode 2, Rudeus takes a moment to look back at the train wreck that was his previous life. The day he got kicked out of his house, the years he spent hiding from the world, and the grand finale, where he got flattened by a truck while trying to save a few teenagers.
Hey! Hey! Watch out!
Not exactly a proud legacy. At least, that wasn't the way he wanted his life to end. Still, that memory only strengthens his resolve to not screw things up this time around. Months pass, with Roxy putting him through non-stop magic training, and before he realizes it, his 5th birthday arrives. That's when Roxy gifts him a magic wand and casually drops some emotional damage. She's got nothing left to teach him. The only thing left is for him to take his graduation exam. The next morning, Rudeus leaves his house for the first time ever, and the outside world immediately hits him like a boss fight he wasn't ready for. Old trauma comes rushing back, memories of being bullied by schoolmates, the resulting isolation, and the fear of being seen. He even starts hearing phantom voices in his head scolding him for daring to look at other people. Yeah, the scars from his past life are still very real. What snaps him out of it is Roxy. Despite standing out herself and being judged for her blue hair and foreign appearance, she walks through the village confidently, chatting with people like it's nothing. Watching her reminds Rudeus of something important. Fear doesn't disappear on its own. You move forward despite it. And for the first time, he does exactly that. Then comes the exam, and Rudeus, being Rudeus, doesn't just pass, he overkills it, summoning a full-on thunderstorm and leaving absolutely no room for doubt. Roxy officially declares him a graduate, having become a Saint-class water mage. With her role fulfilled, she prepares to continue her journey, and Rudeus sincerely thanks her for giving him the push he needed to start living again. The episode ends on a perfectly on-brand note. All that emotional growth immediately gets undercut when the Greyrat maid Lilia finds out that Rudeus secretly stole Roxy's panties.
Oh, wait. I still have a pair of her panties that I stole a few months ago.
Reminding us that while he's improving, he's still very much a work in progress. In the next episode, having overcome his fear of going outside, Rudy starts spending his days playing outdoors. Now, here's how the setting looks. Our boy Rudy is in Buena Village, which is located in the Fitoa region, which is an administrative division of the larger Asura kingdom. One day, he comes across a half-elf child named Sylph being bullied by some kids, and without much hesitation, he steps in and scares the bullies off, but just as quickly, Rudy's brain hits the panic button. You see, Sylph has green hair, which immediately worries our boy Rudeus. Roxy once warned him about the Superd, a dangerous demon race known for that exact trait, as well as a red gem embedded in their foreheads. Not taking any chances, Rudeus sneaks a look at Sylph's forehead. No gem in sight, which is a huge relief.
Okay, safe. He's not one of those dangerous Superds.
The two quickly grow close. They spend their days together, and Rudeus even starts teaching Sylph magic. For the first time in his new life, Rudeus has a real friend, someone he laughs with, learns with, and feels comfortable around. Things feel genuinely happy. Several months later, during a heavy storm, Rudeus brings Sylph back to his house. Wanting them both to dry off and bathe, he forcibly strips Sylph of his clothes. And that's when the shocking truth comes out. Sylph is actually a girl, and her real name is Sylphiette. Oopsie. Rudeus immediately realizes how badly he messed up. He apologizes again and again, but the damage is already done. Embarrassed and hurt, Sylphiette starts avoiding him entirely. For Rudeus, losing his first friend in his new life hits harder than he expected. Noticing his son's gloomy mood, Paul steps in and gives Rudeus some surprisingly thoughtful advice. He tells him that if he truly wants to make things right, he needs to be honest and show kindness instead of panicking or overthinking. Taking that advice to heart, Rudy finally talks to Sylphiette. The conversation is awkward and emotional.
I haven't seen your cute face around here lately, and that's a real shame, you know?
Boy, the struggle is real. Slowly, the two clear the misunderstanding and make up, restoring their friendship. The episode ends with Rudeus firmly resolving to treasure Sylphiette, the first true friend he's made since being reborn, and to never take that bond for granted again. In the following episode, the Greyrat household is filled with joy when they learn that Zenith is pregnant again. Everything feels perfect until Lilia suddenly reveals that she is also expecting a child. Everyone turns to Paul, who immediately admits that he's probably the father. The happy mood shatters instantly, and the situation threatens to tear the family apart. Seeing how bad things could get, Rudeus steps in to calm the chaos. After all, Lilia has been nothing but good to him, and she didn't expose him for stealing Roxy's panties. So he convinces Zenith to forgive Lilia by throwing Paul under the bus. Thanks to Rudeus's intervention, Zenith agrees to let Lilia stay as part of the household. From that moment on, Lilia becomes deeply grateful to Rudeus, treating him with genuine respect for saving her ass. In time, both women give birth. Zenith has a daughter named Norn, while Lilith gives birth to Aisha. Rudeus suddenly finds himself the older brother of 2 girls, and life in the Greyrat home slowly settles into a new normal. Not long after, Rudeus receives a letter from Roxy encouraging him to continue his studies at Renoa Magic Academy. While the idea excites him, it also creates a problem. Sylphiette doesn't want to be separated from him, and Rudeus feels the same.
No, please don't leave. I don't want you to go anywhere.
Hoping to keep them together, he asks Paul to pay for both of their tuition fees, but Paul refuses, explaining that the family simply can't afford it. Determined to make it work anyway, Rudeus decides to find a job and earn the money himself. However, his parents see a deeper issue forming. They worry that Rudeus has grown too attached to Sylphiette and that staying together may limit his growth. Believing separation is necessary, they make a difficult decision. Without fully explaining things to Rudeus, they entrust him to an old family friend, the powerful beast woman, Jelaine. And just like that, Rudeus leaves the village with her, forced onto a new path and separated from Sylphiette as the next chapter of his life begins. In episode 5, Jelaine escorts Rudeus away from home, and along the road he opens a letter from Paul. Paul explains that he found Rudeus a tutoring job so he can earn money for his future studies and Sylphiette's. It sounds really nice until Paul adds an emotional gut punch. Rudeus is forbidden from coming home or seeing Sylphiette for the next 5 years. Damn, poor girl must think she's been abandoned. Rudy and Jelaine arrive in the citadel of Roa, the capital city of the Fitoa region, where he meets his employer, Philip Rudeus Greyrat. Philip is kinda like the city major and also Paul's cousin. Rudy's assignment is to tutor Philip's daughter, Eris. The job interview lasts about 3 seconds before Eris chooses violence.
What I mean to say, miss, is there are some things I can do that you can't.
You're cheeky.
She's loud, spoiled, and allergic to listening. Philip casually mentions that every previous tutor quit almost instantly. Rudeus, however, refuses to return home in utter humiliation. Knowing Eris will never learn anything if she stays like this, Rudeus comes up with a bold plan called Let's Fake a Kidnapping. With Philip's approval, the idea is to scare Eris into realizing that status and bodyguards won't always save her, and that learning magic might actually be useful. It's supposed to be controlled educational trauma. Unfortunately, fate reads the script and sets that thing on fire. You see, this kidnapping turns out to be very real. One of Philip's servants is secretly working with the bandits, and suddenly, this lesson becomes an actual life or death situation. Rudeus manages to earn Eris's trust in the middle of the chaos. He uses his magic to fight back and escape with Eris. Back in Roa, Rudeus stands his ground against the bandits until Jelaine arrives, effortlessly slaughtering them like she's late for dinner and arresting the traitorous servant. In the aftermath, Eris finally brings down the attitude a bit. She accepts Rudeus as her tutor, not because she was ordered to, but because he proved himself when it mattered.
You're saying it's okay for me to stay here? Are you gonna let me be your tutor?
Rudeus moves into the Boreas household and officially begins his new job. And also, unofficially signing up for the most dangerous teaching position in the kingdom. In the next episode, Philip sincerely thanks Rudeus for protecting Eris, but he also gives him a serious warning. If people find out that he is connected to the Greyrat family, he could become a target again. For his own safety, Rudy must keep his background a secret. We're then introduced to the rest of the Greyrat household. Philip's wife, Hilda, looks like the adult version of her prideful daughter. Philip's father, Soros, dominates the room with his overwhelming presence. Soros immediately demands that Eris properly ask Rudeus to be her tutor, forcing her to swallow her pride and comply.
Teach me! I want to learn!
Is that any way to make a polite request?
With that business settled, Rudy officially takes on his new role. Training begins in earnest. Jelaine teaches swordsmanship to both Eris and Rudeus, while Rudeus handles magic, reading, writing, and math. Eris shows enthusiasm for combat and magic, but math quickly becomes her worst enemy. Yeah. Trust me, I've been there. When she repeatedly skips lessons, Rudeus decides to give her one scheduled day off each week as motivation, which helps keep her on track. During a walk through the city, Rudeus notices a massive castle floating in the sky. He learns that it belongs to Perugius, the Dragon King, one of the legendary heroes who once helped defeat and seal away the demon god Laplace. The sight leaves a strong impression on him, but more on that later. In the meantime, Eris tries to thank Rudeus by buying him an expensive book, but he refuses, explaining that gifts should come from her own earnings, not her parents'. Taking his advice, Eris asks for an allowance and later uses it to buy him a small vial he had previously shown interest in. Rudeus quickly realizes, a little too late, that this is the vial that contains an aphrodisiac.
What's that medicine for?
Don't worry about it. Let's move on to an extra tough problem.
He'd planned on buying it in secret. However, when the bottle spills, Eris and Jelaine immediately demand to know what an aphrodisiac means. The episode ends with Rudeus cornered, getting tickled, and desperately searching for a way to explain himself without making things worse. In episode 7, Eris is about to celebrate her 10th birthday. With the date creeping closer, Rudeus temporarily steps aside so Eris's dance instructor can focus on turning her into a proper young lady. This is easier said than done because Eris treats dancing the same way she treats math homework, as a personal enemy. While Eris battles rhythm and posture, Rudeus uses his newfound free time to learn 3 foreign languages. These include the Battle God language, which is manageable and pretty close to human speech. Then there's the Beast God language, spoken by beast people like Jelaine, and finally, the Demon God language, which sounds like a cursed spell designed to cause migraines. And Rudy immediately regrets choosing it. Eris, meanwhile, is making exactly 0 progress in dancing. Frustrated and ready to quit, she decides dancing just isn't for her. Rudeus, sensing an emotional wipeout coming, steps in to encourage her. Instead of barking noble etiquette at her, he starts helping directly, trying to reframe dancing in a way that won't make her want to flip a table. By party day, Rudy's language skills are steadily improving thanks to practice with Jelaine and guidance from some notes that Roxy sent to him. Eris's dancing, on the other hand, is still hanging on by a thread. When the big moment arrives, she completely fumbles her dance with another noble and freezes mid-performance, publicly crashing and burning.
Lady, slow down a bit.
Rudeus jumps in before things get worse. He grabs Eris, tells her to stop thinking like a dancer and start moving like a fighter. Balance, footwork, timing, things she actually understands. And suddenly, it clicks for her. Using her combat instincts, Eris pulls herself together, and the two manage to finish the dance without turning the party into a full-blown disaster. After the celebration, Rudeus speaks with Eris's grandfather, Soros. While everyone else is still riding the high of the party, Soros looks up and notices a strange, glowing red ball of light hanging ominously in the sky. Something big and probably bad seems to be on the way. In the following episode, 2 years fly by, and Eris decides it's time to surprise Rudeus with a birthday party of her own making.
Then we have to give him the best 10th birthday party we can.
By now, Rudy has finally figured out why Philip keeps telling him to keep a low profile. Turns out, the problem isn't Rudy himself, it's his dad's name. Paul Rudeus Greyrat belongs to one of the 4 major Greyrat houses, the Rudeus family. When Paul bailed on noble life, his brother took over as head of the house. And apparently, that guy is a certified scumbag of a human being, because there's a quiet plan brewing to replace this jerk. Having someone with Rudeus blood living comfortably under the Boreas household could cause political chaos. Be that as it may, Rudy's a little bummed that his actual family can't attend his birthday thanks to monster activity popping off all over the country. But the mood instantly improves when Eris hands him an insane birthday gift, a top-tier magic staff. Suddenly, missing home doesn't sting quite as much. After the party, Philip drops another bombshell. Eris has 2 brothers, but she's never met them. When they were born, Philip's older brother took both kids away. In the Boreas family, the head of the house raises all the male heirs, and since Philip lost the succession battle, his sons were basically confiscated. Philip then casually asks Rudy for help pulling off a coup to take leadership of the Boreas household. Oh, and while he's at it, he suggests that Rudy marry Eris and become the next family head. Rudy shuts that idea down immediately. He just wants a quiet life after all. Later that night, Rudy finds Eris waiting in his room and instantly suspects her dad put her up to something. He makes a very bad decision and tries to get intimate with her. Eris shuts him down instantly, but after Rudy apologizes, she tells him that they can get intimate, but only 5 years from now when they'll be more mature. Wait a minute. If we're including his past life, doesn't that mean he's currently in his mid-40s? You know, I'm starting to get why some people are skeptical about this show. Anyway, a few days later, things escalate in the worst possible way. A massive cloud of mana forms in the sky. The legendary hero Perugius notices it too and sends his aide Almanfi to investigate.
Almanfi,
Yes, sir.
if you find the one responsible, kill them.
As you wish.
Almanfi spots Rudy training with his new staff alongside Eris and Jelaine and immediately assumes, yeah, this kid did it. So he attacks. Jelaine steps in like a wall of muscle and fury, blocking the assault and vouching for Rudy's innocence. Before things can get worse, we see that glowing red ball of light that Soros spotted in the last episode. Suddenly, a gigantic burst of light explodes around everyone in sight, confirming that something huge, and definitely not Rudy's fault, is happening. The next episode opens in a hazy, dreamlike space where Rudeus appears in the form of his former, miserable, past life self. There, he briefly encounters the mysterious man-god, an unsettling, smiley entity who just loves to talk and fool around.
You, my friend, were caught up in a huge mounted disaster and got teleported.
The man god then gives him a single piece of advice. When he wakes up, he should trust and support the man who saved him during the disaster from the last episode. Rudeus then awakens in his current younger body and quickly learns the reality of his situation. He and Eris have been transported to the demon continent and are completely stranded. They were rescued by Rudeus Superdia, a member of the feared Superd race. He bears the exact features Roxy warned Rudy about. Despite his terrifying reputation, Rudeus proves to be calm, honorable, and sincere. He befriends the two Greyrats and promises to escort them safely back home. Rudeus brings them to a nearby village, which turns out to be the birthplace of Roxy. There, they meet her parents, who only speak the demon god language, leaving Rudy to flex his language learning skills. Oh, and fun fact, Roxy belongs to a demon race known as the Migurds, which is why she was able to send Rudy some notes on demon god language. Anyway, during their stay, Rudeus opens up about the tragic history of his people. He explains that the Superd's reputation for violence came from cursed spears given to them by the demon god Laplace, which drove them into madness. The spear Rudeus carries once belonged to his own son, and the shock of killing him while under the curse is what caused Rudeus to regain his senses. Rudeus also explains that 400 years ago, Laplace had claimed he wanted to unite demonkind and challenge the injustice imposed by humans. The Superds supported him early on, only to be betrayed and abandoned. Ever since, Rudeus has dedicated himself to restoring his race's honor and clearing their name. Moved by Rudeus' resolve and sense of responsibility, Rudeus decides to help him achieve that goal. Together with Eris, they leave the village and begin their long journey home. Rudeus will protect them from monsters in the wilderness, while Rudeus and Eris will stand by him in cities where the Superd name inspires fear. Not a bad arrangement, actually.
Here we go. Just us and Rudeus. The old me probably would have laughed off his sob story and been done with it.
In episode 10, Rudeus, Eris, and Rudeus finally reach the city of Rikarisu, a place packed with animal-like demon folk. It sounds fine, except Superds are absolutely not welcome here. And Rudeus isn't just any Superd. He's notoriously known around these parts by the nickname Dead End.
What's dead end? They all seem pretty scared of it.
That would be me.
So, yeah, walking in as is would end really badly. To avoid trouble, Rudeus pulls a genius move. He dyes Rudeus' hair blue and has him pretend to be a Magurdia, the same tribe as Roxy. Somehow, it works. The trio even strolls into the Adventurers Guild and boldly register their party name as Dead End. Other adventurers laugh, assuming it's a joke. Ironically, that joke is the entire plan. Make the name Dead End famous for good deeds instead of murder. There's just one problem though. They're stuck at the lowest F rank, which means trash quests and trash pay. At the local inn, a young demon adventurer named Kurt tries to recruit Dead End members to his group, the Tokurabu Party. But a misunderstanding quickly turns into Eris punching the dude into the floor. Rudeus heals Kurt and calmly explains that Dead End is here to stay. Later that night, at their hotel room, Rudeus stresses about money and their low rank. Enter the Man God, who pops up in a dream and gives peak wisdom. Take the low rank quest to find a lost kitten. Rudeus wakes up, unconvinced but desperate. Eris is already awake too, worried about Jelaine and her grandfather, which only adds to the somber mood. The next day, they take the lost kitten quest and immediately uncover a scam. Another adventurer group has been kidnapping pets to just find them later for reward money. Absolute douchebags. Dead End shuts that down pretty fast. When Rudeus tries to question the crooks, one of them, named Loman, takes a swing at him. Rudeus reacts instantly and kills the guy on the spot. That's when Rudeus snaps. He chews Rudeus out and lays down a hard rule: no killing unless it's self-defense. If they want to fix the Rupert reputation, this whole instant execution thing has to stop, no matter what the culprit did to deserve getting killed. Thinking on his feet, Rudeus takes advantage of the situation. He uses the kidnapper's higher guild rank to cut a deal, letting Dead End access better paying quests through them. Then, he adds a little motivation. They have to spread the word about how amazing the Dead End party is, or end up like their buddy Loman.
Vudraiwi haksejeze, ku Dead End. Mensoyandu onzewi, hayensi zanze zanenai. Anzabekayanza haipia kanzai.
And just like that, Dead End starts building both money and a brand through kindness, cleverness, and a very healthy dose of fear. In the next episode, after the Mana disaster devastates the Fitoa region, Roxy sets out to find news of Rudeus and the Greyrat family. Aside from Paul and his young daughter Norn, everyone else is missing. Paul left a message for Rudeus, saying he will search for him after locating the rest of the family, clinging to the hope that his son is still alive.
Dear Rudeus, Zenith, Lilia, and Aisha are all missing.
On the Demon Continent, Rudeus, Eris, and Rudeus, aka the Dead End Party, accept a quest to hunt a mysterious monster in a dense forest. Two other adventurer groups are after the same target. One is led by an aggressive, boar-faced adventurer who insists on claiming the hunt for himself, while the other group is the Tokurabu squad. Rudeus grows uneasy, sensing that the younger group is in danger. His fears soon come true when the Tokurabu team is ambushed by a giant spider and an almond anaconda. Rudeus prepares to help, but Rudeus holds him back, hoping that the Dead End can step in at the last moment to boost their reputation. The plan backfires badly when one of the young adventurers is killed. This leads to a serious rift between Rudeus and Rudeus, though the situation is eventually calmed by Kurt, who takes responsibility for his fallen comrade. Soon after, the true target monster, a red hood cobra, appears, having already slaughtered most of the competing party, with their boar-faced leader caught in its jaws. This time, Rudeus acts without hesitation. Dead End intervenes immediately and defeats the monster, although the boar-faced guy sadly succumbs to his injuries. Back in Rikarisu, Rudeus faces a new problem when a horse-faced adventurer approaches him, having uncovered his earlier scheme with the Loman group. The man attempts to blackmail Rudeus, threatening to expose the Dead End party for taking quests above their rank and have their adventurer licenses revoked unless he receives a share of their earnings.
Every plan I've had since we got here has totally backfired. So what now?
Cornered, Rudeus briefly considers fleeing the city with Eris by force. Before things spiral further, Rudeus reveals himself as a Superd and threatens the blackmailer into silence. After leaving the city, Rudeus and Rudeus reconcile, clearing the tension between them. The next morning, Rudeus appears with his head shaved, symbolizing a fresh start. Rudeus gives him a headband to conceal the red gem on his forehead, and the party adopts wears matching accessories, solidifying their unity. Rudeus begins planning their journey toward the Ashura Kingdom. As Dead End continues traveling toward a coastal city at the edge of the Demon Continent, Rudeus remains unaware that Roxy has also arrived on the continent. Accompanied by two of Paul's former companions, she continues her search, bringing their paths ever closer to crossing. In episode 12, Roxy's group arrives safely at the port city, while Rudeus, Eris, and Rudeus run into a harsh problem of their own. Turns out, traveling by ship is expensive, and if you're a superb like Rudeus, it's ridiculously expensive. There's no way that they can afford it, and for a moment, this journey feels completely stuck. Later that night, Rudeus is once again visited by the man god in his sleep. As usual, the advice is oddly specific and frustratingly vague. He's told to buy some food from a street vendor and take a walk through the back alleys. With no better options, Rudeus follows the instructions the next day. While wandering through the alley, he comes across a starving peddler and decides to share his food with her. The woman then reveals her true identity. She is Kishirika Kishirisu, a demon emperor. Amused by his kindness, she rewards Rudeus with a brand new eye that comes with a powerful ability, the power to see a few seconds into the future.
Pretty cool, am I right? Thanks once again for all the food. If you're ever in a bind, don't hesitate to call on me.
Rudeus quickly tests this power and uses it to save a man from getting injured, proving just how useful this ability is. Even so, their money problem remains. Determined to help Rudeus decides to sell his magic staff to cover the travel cost. Rudeus immediately refuses, unwilling to let Rudeus sacrifice something so important for his sake. Just then, the man Rudeus saved earlier, his name is Gallus Cleaner by the way, approaches him, hinting that Rudeus's small act of kindness may lead to another interesting fortune. In episode 13, we check in on Roxy, who's still searching everywhere for Rudeus and the rest of his scattered family. Ironically, she keeps running into the Dead End crew, just never Rudy himself. As we already know, she's teamed up with two of Paul's former party members, Tolland, who's quiet and serious, and Elinalise, who is the exact opposite. Elinalise is less interested in gathering information and way more interested in having fun non-stop. And by fun, I'm talking bedroom fun. She even casually invites Roxy to join her wild lifestyle. Roxy, being painfully awkward and very not ready for that kind of thing, politely nopes on out of there. Back on Rudy's side of the story, Gallus Cleaner agrees to smuggle Rudeus to the Millis continent. It's on the condition that once they arrive, Dead End has to help him liberate some stolen goods. Fair enough. The sea journey itself is miserable, especially for Eris, who spends most of the trip seasick and out of commission. On the other hand, Rudy keeps making fun of her not-so-pleasant condition.
Am I gonna die? You can be honest.
If you die of seasickness, I will make fun of you.
When they arrive, Rudy goes to retrieve Rudeus from the smuggler's holding area and quickly realizes there's a problem. Rudeus doesn't want to just leave. There are beast children imprisoned there, and one was beaten to death for simply crying too loudly. Rudeus refuses to abandon them. Rudy is deeply uncomfortable at first. This means fighting and possibly killing people, and it doesn't exactly bode well for the superb reputation. But when he learns the guards are nothing but criminals and traffickers, he swallows his doubts and agrees to help free the captives. During the chaos, Rudy gets sidetracked trying to rescue what looks like a sacred dog, which leads him to getting caught.
Oh, this is the best day of my life!
Unfortunately for Rudy, the Beast People mistake him for a smuggler and haul him off to their village, ending the episode with him once again in serious trouble and completely separated from his friends. In episode 14, Rudy wakes up in Doldia Village, in what is basically a birdcage. And to make things even worse, he's naked. Yeah, full exposure. What makes it extra weird is that when another prisoner named Geese shows up days later, the new guy gets to keep his clothes.
Watch it, new guy! I've been in here longer than you, which means I'm the master of this cell! Show some respect!
Good. Now please, make yourself comfortable. Let's chat.
So why is Rudy stripped? I guess touching that sacred dog in the last episode earned him some very specific, very awkward punishment. Now, you might be wondering, Rudy can cast magic without a staff, so why doesn't he just blast his way out? Well, it's pretty simple. He has no clue where he is, so escaping blindly wouldn't be very smart according to his logic. And he's convinced that Eris and Rudeus will rescue him any minute now. So he waits, and waits, and waits. Well, with no help coming, Rudy then decides to break out of jail, but the plan goes out the window when smugglers, led by none other than Gallus, set the forest village on fire. With the place literally burning down, Rudy and Geese escape the cage and head toward the forest floor. Instead of running away, they choose violence. Well, mostly Geese does. Rudy focuses on putting out the fire by summoning rain like a weather god. Gallus, seeing Rudy's power, tries the classic villain move, "Hey kid, wanna switch sides?" Rudy responds the only correct way, by throwing hands. With help from the sacred dog, Rudy fights Gallus head on. The battle is brutal. Rudy takes a nasty dagger wound to the leg, but Gallus, despite being a highly skilled fighter, gets taken out for good. And after that, Rudy suddenly blacks out. He wakes up to a familiar sight, Eris, Rudeus, and the Beast Village's chieftain standing over him. Apologies are given, misunderstandings cleared up, and Rudy is finally allowed to return to something resembling normal life. But while things calm down for Rudy, the story cuts back to the Asura kingdom, where things are very not okay. Soros, Eris's grandpa, is executed for his role, or lack thereof, in the disaster that sent Rudy and Eris to the demon continent.
Eris, my dearest granddaughter, I wish you a lifetime of happiness.
But let's be real, this isn't about justice. It's politics doing what politics does best, using someone as a scapegoat. Nothing much happens in episode 15, but we do find out that our dead-end crew has spent 3 months in Doldia Village, and apparently this place is Jelane's home turf. But moving on. In episode 16, a year and a half has passed since the Mana disaster yeeted Rudeus and Eris to the demon continent. After everything they've been through, reaching the Millis continent back in human territory feels like the first real moment of relief they've had in ages. Rudeus suggests they stay for a while. The jobs here pay well, and they still don't know how much the next sea journey will cost. He also thinks they should take a short break to handle personal matters. For him, that means writing a letter home to let his family know he's alive. Eris, meanwhile, decides to spend the day goblin hunting. She is such a badass now. While thinking about what to write, Rudeus notices a horse speeding through town with what looks like a kidnapped child. Unable to ignore it, he gives chase. The trail leads him into an old building where he hides behind some crates to figure out what's going on. To his surprise, the kidnappers aren't hurting the child, they're feeding him. Before Rudeus can make sense of it, he realizes the crate he's hiding in is filled with underwear. His shock gives him away and the kidnappers attack. Using quick thinking and magic, Rudeus disguises himself and manages to free the child.
Who am I? I am the great dead-end Rudeus!
Moments later, the leader of the group appears, a skilled swordsman who immediately feels familiar. The two recognize each other at the same time. It's Paul, Rudeus's father. Rudeus excitedly starts talking about his journey, trying to make it sound impressive, traveling across continents, growing stronger, and surviving impossible situations. Paul doesn't react the way he expects. Instead of relief, Paul is furious. Because while Rudeus was on his adventurous journey, Paul has been desperately searching for his missing family after their village was teleported away. He has no idea where Zenith, Lilia, or Aisha even are. The argument escalates. Hurt and overwhelmed, Rudeus lashes out and accuses Paul of cheating on his mother. Drunk and exhausted, Paul snaps and attacks him. The fight is very brief, and Rudeus wins, but the victory feels hollow. Then, a young girl steps between them. Norn, Rudy's baby sister. She doesn't recognize Rudeus at all, and as Rudy walks away, Paul explains that the entire village was displaced and that he's been searching ever since. The hostile stares from the people around them trigger memories of Rudeus's past life and the bullying he once endured, leaving him shaken and silent. Back at the dead-end hotel room, Eris is furious at Paul for attacking Rudeus and is ready to confront him, but when she sees how broken Rudeus is, she puts aside her anger and pulls him into her arms instead. Aww. In episode 17, we find out that Geese isn't just some random adventurer. He's actually Paul's friend and part of the search team looking for everyone who got teleported from the Fitoa region. He tracks Paul down and gets the full story about Paul's run-in with Rudeus. Paul, now permanently marinated in alcohol, is mad about it. Geese, being the reasonable one, asks him a question. Dude, aren't you being way too hard on an 11-year-old? Paul refuses to budge. Rudeus is a genius, he says, so he should know better and act better. That's when Geese hits him with reality. He asks Paul if he's ever been to the Demon Continent. Paul hasn't, so Geese describes it for him, and it's no vacation spot. Basically, the worst place imaginable for a child. Suddenly, Paul doesn't look so confident anymore. That night, fueled by booze, guilt, and terrifying mental images of what his son might have endured, Paul finally sobers up and goes looking for Rudeus. When he walks into the restaurant where the dead-end party is eating, Eris immediately snaps and prepares to throw hands. Rudeus calmly grabs her, carries her outside, and tells Paul, one father to another, that he needs to choose his words carefully.
You're welcome to air all your grievances, but the only reason you can is that your son is still alive to hear them.
The apology attempt is rough. Paul tries to say sorry. Rudeus tries to blame himself. It's painfully awkward until the barkeep, who's been eavesdropping, decides to step in and tell Rudeus to at least look his father in the eyes. And that's when it clicks. Rudeus remembers a moment from his past life when someone tried to reach out to him when he was depressed, and he pushed them away because he was too wrapped up in self-hatred. He never saw that person again, and he realizes something terrifying. If he doesn't change right now, he'll probably lose his father the same way. So Rudeus makes a bold move. He suggests they forget yesterday ever happened. Paul is confused until Rudeus forces him to kneel, spread his arms, and then straight up jumps into them. The hug breaks Paul completely. He starts crying, admitting he thought he would never see his son again.
I'm so sorry. Rudy!
I'm not gonna lie, I teared up at this scene. It's so damn good. father and son finally reconcile, but that doesn't mean they're teaming up. Rudeus has already made his decision. He's taking Eris back home, even if Fitoa region has changed beyond recognition. She deserves to see it for herself. After that, Rudeus plans to set out again, this time to find his missing mother and siblings. In episode 18, we get a little update on Roxy's journey. In the Demon Continent, she reunites with her family, but it's not exactly the smoothest reunion. You see, Roxy had been dealing with childhood trauma and feelings of disappointment from not being able to communicate telepathically like other members of her race. But it's really not her fault, and all that matters now is that her family misses her so much. They also tell her about their encounter with Rudy and hope that both of them can visit again in the near future. In the next episode, Man God finally appears in Rudy's dream after being absent for over a year. Rudy isn't happy about seeing himself in his old miserable past life form again, but Man God explains that this is simply what Rudy's soul looks like. There's no changing it.
Damn it. Every time you bring me here, I go back to my old self.
Putting that aside, Rudy asks Man God for help finding the rest of his family. Man God agrees and shows Rudy visions of the near future using his demon eye. From this, Rudy learns that Lilia and Aisha are alive, but being held in the palace of the Chiron Kingdom. Man God says that if Rudy goes there, he will be able to rescue them. He also insists that Rudy send a letter to Roxy, though he doesn't explain why. In return for this guidance, Man God only asks that Rudy trust him more and be friendlier the next time they meet. Hey, not a bad trade. The Chiron Kingdom is also where Roxy once worked as a tutor to a young prince, which makes the plan feel even more certain. Rudy knows that he'll need Eris and Rudeus's help, but he doesn't want to explain anything about Man God or his reincarnation. He simply asks for their support, and they agree without pressing him for answers. Before Rudy can even put the plan into motion, Aisha unexpectedly finds him first. Palace guards are searching for her, but Rudy manages to fend them off and get her to safety. However, he remembers Man God's warning not to reveal his true identity to Aisha. The reason quickly becomes clear. Aisha believes her older brother is a complete pervert. Lilia once warned her to never open Rudy's treasure box, but curiosity got the better of her. Inside were panties, which completely ruined Rudy's reputation in her eyes. Oof. To avoid scaring her off, Rudy uses an alias and asks Eris and Rudeus to do the same. Eris struggles with this, since lying isn't exactly her strength, but she makes an effort. When Rudy receives an invitation to the palace to meet Roxy, Eris and Rudeus promise to look after Aisha while he's gone. Rudy heads to the palace feeling excited about the possibility of reuniting with his socially awkward teacher, but things quickly go south. Instead of finding Roxy, he finds Lilia tied up on the floor, and the 7th prince of the Chiron Kingdom, Prince Pax, behaving suspiciously. Pax is the young prince that Roxy was tutoring, and he is the absolute worst. Before Rudy can react, he's caught in a trap that seals his magic and leaves him completely helpless. It turns out Pax is extremely obsessed with Roxy and wants to keep her for himself forever. He also wants to do things to her that I can't even say out loud. When using Lilia as leverage failed, he decided to use Rudy instead, knowing how much Roxy wouldn't stop yapping about him.
Roxy never did shut up about her precious student, so she'll definitely come running back.
What began as a rescue mission suddenly turns into Rudy becoming a prisoner himself. Damn. In episode 20, we get a brief flashback to the teleportation incident. When the mysterious beam of light struck, everyone, Paul, Zenith, Lilia, Sylphiette, Norn, and Aisha, was together for just a moment before being scattered across the world. Lilia, holding Aisha tightly, ended up near a lake close to the kingdom of Chiron. With nowhere else to turn, she hoped to seek help from Roxy. Unfortunately, Roxy was no longer serving as Chiron's court mage. Prince Pax had driven her away with his constant harassment, and now he saw Lilia and Aisha as useful tools. Kidnapping people was Pax's preferred way of controlling others, including his own soldiers, who only obeyed him because he held their families hostage. I told you guys, this guy is the absolute worst. Despite Pax's grip on the kingdom, his rule was always unstable. All it needed was the right people to expose it. That opportunity arrives with Rudeus and the Dead End Party. Oh, I might have forgotten to mention this, but before the teleportation disaster, Rudeus spent his free time crafting figurines, including one of Roxy. This particular Roxy statue, far more detailed than it probably needed to be, eventually catches the attention of Zenoba, the third prince of Chiron. Zenoba is very much interested in learning the art of making such figurines, and when he discovers that Rudy is the original artist, he becomes completely captivated and insists on becoming Rudy's disciple.
Please allow me to pay my respects to your godlike hands! Now allow me to call you master!
Zenoba's devotion carries weight, especially since he's known as the Decapitator Prince for killing one of his brothers in the past. Given that Pax has imprisoned Rudy, Zenoba makes it clear that he's willing to turn against his own sibling if necessary. Before things escalate that far though, Rudeus steps in and frees the families Pax has been using as leverage. With his soldiers no longer under his control, Pax is forced to release Rudy. In the aftermath, Pax is stripped of his power and exiled from the kingdom. Zenoba is also removed from the line of succession, leaving Chiron to move on from these two nutcases. At long last, Rudy reunites with Lilia. She returns his treasure box and gives him a handmade pendant from Sylphiette, made for his 10th birthday. Rudy also reunites with Aisha, who soon realizes the truth about her brother. Acknowledging everything he's done, she apologizes for calling him a pervert as she leaves the kingdom with her mother to reunite with Paul.
And I'm sorry I called you a pervert. Hope you're not mad.
No, I'm not mad.
In episode 21, as our dead-end crew travels through the mountains, Eris spots a group of red dragons and instantly gets excited about fighting them. Rudeus quickly gives her a reality check. Red dragons move in packs, and even warriors ranked among the 7 great powers would probably struggle against an entire flock. Unfortunately, what they run into next is even worse. Out of nowhere, they encounter Orsted, the dragon god, one of the 7 great powers and the second strongest being in the world, surpassed only by the technique god. These 7 great powers are literally the 7 strongest individuals in the world, and we're meeting one of the baddest face to face. He's traveling with a strange girl named Nanahoshi. The moment Orsted appears, Eris and Rudeus freeze up completely, unable to move or even speak. His presence alone overwhelms them. Rudeus, however, feels none of that fear. He's the only one capable of talking normally, which immediately catches Orsted's attention. At first, the conversation is surprisingly calm. Orsted already knows Rudeus and Eris, but Rudeus is a complete mystery to him. Then, Orsted asks a dangerous question. Has Rudeus ever met the man god? Despite knowing he probably shouldn't talk about it, Rudeus answers honestly and mentions his encounters with the man god. The mood instantly shifts. Orsted decides Rudeus must die. Rudeus and Eris try to protect him, but it's hopeless. Rudeus is defeated with ease. Eris is struck down next. Rudeus doesn't even try to run, and within moments, he's killed, impaled straight through the chest.
No matter. Die.
Holy shit. After dying, Rudeus meets Man God once again. Even Man God admits this outcome wasn't something he foresaw. He explains that Orsted is a cursed being, burdened with 4 curses. These curses cause everyone around him to feel overwhelming fear, explaining why Eris and Rudeus couldn't move. And the curses also limit Orsted's true power. Nanahoshi, of course, isn't affected by the fear curse, and neither was Rudeus, because his soul didn't originally come from this world. Rudeus also learns that Orsted has made himself invisible to the man god, meaning the man god can't see or predict anything involving the dragon god. The two clearly have a long-standing beef. Rudeus accepts his death calmly. He wishes he could have done more, but he's at peace with his choices, including his efforts to improve the Superb's reputation. But for our MC, this isn't the time to die. Duh. He comes back to life in Eris's arms. She explains to him that Nanahoshi said something to Orsted after the fight. Eris didn't hear what it was though. Whatever the strange girl said convinced Orsted to bring Rudeus back to life, even after killing him moments earlier.
Why would he want to heal somebody he just killed?
Really weird stuff. I guess the lesson of the day is stop talking to strangers? In the next episode, Rudeus finally comes clean with Rudeus. He tells him about the man god and also drops some good news. The curse that makes everyone fear the Superb is slowly fading away. So in the end, their journey actually mattered. Soon after, the group reaches what's left of Rudeus's hometown, or rather, where the hometown used to be. Seeing the place again hits Rudeus hard, dragging up memories of his childhood and everything he's lost. That's when Rudeus makes a big decision. He tells Rudeus and Eris that they're strong enough now, so they don't need his protection anymore. He thanks Rudeus for helping him grow, not just stronger, but as a person, and then quietly walks away. It's a simple goodbye, but it hurts nonetheless. Now on their own, Rudeus and Eris travel to Roa, which is also completely destroyed. There, Eris reunites with Jelaine and her family's servant, Alphonse. The reunion doesn't last long before the bad news drops. Eris's parents were killed during the teleportation disaster. Her grandfather was blamed for everything and was executed. As if that wasn't enough though, Alphonse adds one more insult. Another branch of the Greyrat family wants Eris to become a concubine for Pilamon Notos Greyrat.
Alphonse, are you seriously considering that scumbag's offer?
Jelaine absolutely loses it at the suggestion, and the argument gets heated. Overwhelmed, Eris tells everyone to leave her alone so that she can think. While Eris spirals into despair, Rudeus checks the missing persons board. He confirms his worst fear. His mother Zenith is still missing. The only small relief is learning that Sylphiette wasn't found dead, but no one knows where she is either. That night, Eris sneaks into Rudeus's tent and tells him she secretly turned 15. This is her way of saying it's time for some hanky-panky business. Rudeus hesitates, not wanting to take advantage of her emotional state, but Eris makes the choice herself. The two spend the night together. The next morning, Rudeus wakes up feeling warm, hopeful, and then reality punches him in the face. Eris is gone. She left during the night with Jelaine, without a word, without an explanation, and without a goodbye. Rudeus is left confused, heartbroken, and emotionally obliterated. Damn, dude. You survived monsters, gods, curses, even death itself, only to get dumped after a one-night stand. Sheesh. In the last episode of Season 1, Rudeus completely shuts down after Eris leaves. He sinks into a deep depression, haunted by memories of his past life, especially the brutal bullying that broke him and turned him into a shut-in. Being abandoned again hits old scars, and for a while, he can barely move forward at all. Meanwhile, Eris hasn't abandoned him out of cruelty. She leaves with Jelaine because she believes she's too weak. After seeing what Orsted managed to pull, she decides she needs to become strong enough to protect Rudeus one day, even if that means walking away now.
I love Rudeus! But I'm not fit to be with him yet, so I'll get stronger.
I mean, that's fine and all, but why not just explain that to the guy? Damn. Out in the world, life keeps moving. Rudeus saves a group of travelers from monsters and openly reveals he's a Superd, and instead of fear, he's met with gratitude. Bit by bit, his people's reputation is healing. Roxy, on her journey, runs into the ever-chaotic demon emperor Kishirika, who's racked up a massive bar tab. Roxy pays it off, and in return, Kishirika uses her demon eyes to locate Rudeus's missing family. The news is a mix of relief and urgency. Aisha and Lilia have reunited safely with Paul and Norn, but Zenith is trapped in the labyrinth city of Rapan on the Bigarit continent. Yeah, that sounded like a mouthful. Without hesitation, Roxy and her party prepare to head there and rescue her. Back with Rudeus, the depression lingers until he dreams of his mother. That moment snaps something back into place. No matter how broken he feels, he still has a responsibility. He still has someone he needs to save. With that realization, Rudeus forces himself to stand up and continue his journey. Elsewhere, we finally see Sylphiette, very much alive and well, and has white hair now, as she tries to convince a mysterious group to recruit Rudeus into their ranks.
He is my savior, my mentor, and my first friend.
Even when he's lost and hurting, the world still hasn't forgotten Rudeus Greyrat. Before we delve into Season 2, there's a special episode that shows us what Sylphiette has been up to. After the teleportation incident turns the world upside down, Sylphie gets the worst kind of fast travel imaginable. She's dropped straight out of the sky above the Ashura Kingdom. On her way down, she accidentally saves the life of Princess Ariel, the kingdom's second princess, by blasting a deadly boar right in the head. Unfortunately, Ariel's magic guardian Derek isn't so lucky and dies from his wounds. Sylphie survives, but at a cost. She burned through so much mana that her green hair permanently turns white, giving her a brand new look she definitely didn't ask for. Ariel, seeing how absurdly strong Sylphie is, immediately decides she wants her on the team. While threatening to charge her with trespassing, Ariel basically strong-arms Sylphie into becoming her secret bodyguard under the name Fitz. Turns out, Ariel really needs the help. She's locked in a quiet but deadly power struggle with her brother Grable over who gets the throne. Her few trusted allies are her loyal guard Luke and Luke's father, Lord Palemon Notos Greyrat. Yeah, that Greyrat family. As time passes, Ariel learns that Sylphie is haunted by nightmares about the teleportation incident. Ariel admits she has nightmares too, mostly about almost dying. Trauma bonding ensues, and the two decide to sleep in the same room that night for comfort. Unfortunately though, royal politics wait for no one. An assassin is sent by Gabriel and his shady ally Darius to kill Ariel. Sylphie steps up, fights the assassin, and wins, proving she's more than earned her paycheck. Realizing things are only going to get worse, Lord Palemon suggests that Ariel leave the kingdom for her own safety by using the excuse that she wants to study abroad. Ariel agrees and officially releases Sylphie from her duty, but Sylphie isn't going anywhere. By now, she considers Ariel a friend, not an obligation. So instead of going her own way, she chooses to stay by Ariel's side. Together, the princess, Luke, and her white-haired guardian set off into the wider world. And that's basically all there is for this special episode. In the first episode of Season 2, Rudeus heads into the freezing Northlands in search of Zenith, but emotionally, he's even colder. Eris leaving hits him hard, and our boy is still stuck in his feelings. Unfortunately though, sadness doesn't pay for food or lodging, so Rudeus has no choice but to look for work. That's how he ends up joining an adventuring party called Counter Arrow. The group includes the tough frontline fighters Suzanne and Patrice, the calm mage Timothy, the reliable healer Mimir, and the sharp-eyed archer Sarah. Sarah, in particular, doesn't trust Rudeus at all, and to make things worse, her blunt attitude reminds him a little too much of Eris. So, yeah, awkward. Their first job together is hunting grizzlies, which sounds manageable until it very much isn't. The mission goes sideways when the party gets surrounded by these bear monsters, and suddenly everyone is fighting just to stay alive. Watching his teammates risk everything for each other snaps something awake in Rudeus. For the first time in a while, he actually wants to live. He steps up, uses his magic, and helps turn the fight around. Back in town, Counter Arrow officially welcomes Rudeus as one of their own, and for the first time since Eris left, things don't feel completely hopeless. Rudeus realizes he hasn't lost everything. He still has people who care about him. He still has goals. He still has Roxy, his family, and a future to move toward. Accepting that Eris chose her own path, he finally lets go, burning the lock of her hair he'd been holding on to. It hurts, but it's also a step forward. Good job, Rudy. You finally figured it out. In the next episode, several months go by, and Rudeus steadily makes a name for himself in the Bosharant kingdom. He takes on job after job, hoping that eventually someone will recognize his name and lead him to Zenith, or at least know where she is. Fame first, reunion later. After finishing a snow-gathering job, Rudeus tags along with Counter Arrow on another quest to collect snowdrake scales. It sounds simple, but it really isn't. The party gets ambushed by these alligator-like monsters, and just to make things messier, they run into another adventuring group called Stepped Leader, who are also hunting the same monsters.
You got a lot of nerve giving me that dopey smile after you try to swipe our prey.
But somehow, Counter Arrow still pulls off the mission and makes it back to town in one piece. Back in town, Sarah talks Rudeus into joining their victory celebration. Drinks are flowing, spirits are high, until Soldat, the leader of Stepped Leader, gets drunk and starts running his mouth. He goes on a bitter rant about Rudeus, saying he doesn't like him because it's obvious he's hiding how strong he really is. The party mood dies a slow, painful death. The next day, things take a brutal turn. Rudeus hears that Mimir is dead and that Sarah is missing. Counter Arrow had to retreat during their last quest after a sudden blizzard rolled in. Without wasting time, Rudeus heads straight into the forest looking for her. He slaughters the snow buffaloes responsible, recovers what's left of Mimir, and keeps searching. Then it gets worse. Rudeus finds Sarah's earring and assumes the worst, that she's already dead. But instead of giving up, he pushes forward and discovers the truth. Sarah is alive, trapped by some weird sentient tree. Rudeus rescues her just in time. Afterward, Sarah and Counter Arrow thank him for saving her and bringing Mimir back home. But to Rudeus, it feels like he's the one who's been saved, like some heavy weight he didn't realize he was carrying has been lifted.
I feel like I've been forgiven for everything I've done and been. I sort of feel like Sarah just saved me.
For the first time in a long while, he looks forward to doing something simple, peaceful, and well-earned. A good night's sleep. In the next episode, Counter Arrow celebrates another successful mission, and by now, Rudeus has practically become a regular member of the party. Ever since he saved Sarah, his reputation as Quagmire has only continued to grow, and his presence on missions feels natural rather than unusual. By the way, having Quagmire as a nickname is kinda corny, but hey, we don't judge. During the celebration, Sarah, who has clearly grown closer to Rudeus, asks him to help her buy a dagger. The rest of the party immediately picks up on the implication and teases them relentlessly, turning the outing into an obvious date. Rudeus agrees, and the two head into town, eventually buying 2 daggers before stopping by a pub. Sarah drinks a little too much, grows tipsy, and at her request, they return to Rudeus's room. Once there, the mood turns intimate, and the two are on the verge of sleeping together. However, despite his feelings for Sarah, Rudeus senses that something is wrong. His body refuses to respond, and the awkward silence drags on. Misunderstanding the situation and feeling rejected, Sarah becomes upset and leaves. Later that night, Rudeus is seen drinking alone, ordering more alcohol as he spirals further into self-loathing. Soldat eventually finds him and, as usual, begins to berate him. This time, Rudeus snaps and attacks him, breaking down completely while Soldat chooses not to fight back.
I don't want anyone to hate me! That's why I'm always smiling like that! What about that pisses you off so much?
After hearing about Eris abandoning Rudeus in the past, Soldat drags him to the escort district in an attempt to force him to confront the problem. There, Rudeus meets Elise, who recognizes him and thanks him for healing her sister the previous winter, but even Elise can't get him to perform. Afterward, Soldat bluntly explains what's really happening. Rudeus has become impotent, or at least that's the only logical conclusion, given that Rudy's breakup with Eris is still affecting his relationship with other girls. With the truth laid bare, they leave the district, and Soldat advises him not to rush things and to talk things through with Sarah instead. Still drunk and emotionally numb, Rudeus ignores the advice. Instead, he bitterly badmouths Sarah, claiming that she isn't attractive anyway. To his horror, Sarah is nearby with Suzanne and hears everything. Yikes. Shocked and furious, she slaps him, throws the dagger they bought together at his feet, and coldly tells him she never wants to see him again. Suzanne scolds him as well before leaving with Sarah. The encounter pushes Rudeus into complete despair. Left behind with the dagger, he attempts to take his own life, but Soldat stops him at the last moment.
Hold your horses, dumbass!
Soldat urges him to go after Sarah and make things right, but Rudeus refuses, insisting that nothing matters to him anymore. Seeing no other option, Soldat offers him a new job, a dangerous expedition to a labyrinth in the Neris Kingdom. With nowhere else to turn, Rudeus accepts. In episode 4, Rudeus spends the next 2 full years roaming the world with Soldat and the Stepped Leader party. They bounce from town to town, taking dangerous jobs, crushing monsters, and spreading stories about Rudeus wherever they go. And it works. His name keeps growing until it finally peaks with one particularly insane achievement. Rudeus kills a red dragon all by himself. Even with all that, Rudeus refuses to return to the city where it all began, Rosenberg. He knows seeing Counter Arrow again, especially Sarah, would only drag him off track. Right now, he has one goal, and he can't afford distractions. Eventually, while staying in the city of Pippin, fate catches up to him. Alina Lise finally tracks him down and drops some big news. Paul and Roxy have already left for the city of Rapan on the Begarit continent to search for Zenith. The problem is, the journey alone takes about a year. With winter closing in, Rudeus decides to remain in the northern lands until it passes before setting out himself. While traveling with Alina Lise, Rudeus very quickly learns something else. She has zero shame and an extremely active love life. Not long after, another surprise lands in Rudeus's hands. A letter from the Renoa University of Magic, Roxy's alma mater, inviting him to enroll as a special student thanks to his recent achievements. The offer catches his interest, but Rudeus hesitates. Finding Zenith still comes first. That night, the man-god appears in Rudeus's dreams once again. He tells Rudeus to accept the invitation and investigate the teleport incident at the university. As extra motivation, Man-God casually promises that doing so will also fix Rudeus's, performance issues.
You shall once again regain your manly potency and your pride!
That's all the convincing Rudeus needs. With a new purpose, Rudeus accepts the offer and sets off for Renoa, traveling alongside Alina Lise. Meanwhile, it's revealed in the credit scenes that we won't be alone there for long. Sylphie, Ariel, and Zenoba are already students at the university. Old paths are about to cross again, whether Rudeus is ready or not. In episode 5, Rudeus finally arrives at Renoa University of Magic, and the school immediately decides to test him. To see if the rumors about his feats are real, they throw him into a mock duel against another silent caster named Fitz. What Rudeus doesn't know is that Fitz is actually Sylphie in disguise. The duel doesn't last long. Rudeus completely overwhelms Fitz and wins without much effort. Satisfied, the university accepts both Rudeus and Alina Lise as students. Not long after, Rudeus attends a big speech given by Ariel, who's now the student council president. From there, he heads to his homeroom class and immediately gets hit with nostalgia. He reunites with Zenoba, who is just as intense and socially awkward as ever. He also meets several new classmates, Linnea de Doldia, who happens to come from Doldia Village, Persena, another loud beast girl, and Cliff Grimoire, a self-proclaimed magical genius. Cliff proudly tells Rudeus he knows him because of Eris, though he also admits he hasn't seen her in a long time. Rudeus also learns that Fitz is in his class, though Fitz almost never shows up. After a brief and awkward interaction with Fitz, Rudeus runs into Luke, who drops a surprise announcement. He's also a Greyrat, making him Rudeus's cousin. Luke casually comments that Rudeus is extremely forgetful, heavily implying that he should already know who Fitz really is. Naturally, Rudeus misses the hint completely. Later that day, while heading back to his dorm, a ridiculous incident occurs. Fitz accidentally drops Ariel's panties out of a window, and Rudeus, unlucky as ever, catches them mid-air. Immediately, a group of furious female students surrounds him, accusing him of being a panty thief.
Excuse me, you dropped these?
Underwear thief!
The dorm teacher steps in and prepares to punish Rudeus on the spot. That's when Fitz arrives. With terrifying calm, Fitz shuts down the whole situation by threatening the teacher and the angry mob with serious bodily harm if they don't back off. Faced with sudden violence, everyone quickly retreats. The teacher grudgingly lets Rudeus go with a warning. Afterward, Fitz apologizes for dragging Rudeus into the mess. Rudeus thanks Fitz sincerely for stepping in to save him. Amused, Fitz decides to keep her secret a little longer and walks away without telling Rudeus that she's actually Sylphiette, watching him remain completely clueless. Then again, if she's been hoping to see him again, why not just tell him her real identity? In episode 6, Rudeus slowly begins to settle into life at Renoa University, balancing his classes, experiments, and the usual problems that seem to follow him everywhere. He spends a lot of time studying magic that he barely knows and dives deep into researching the teleportation incident alongside Fitz. But he starts noticing something very confusing. Every time he's around Fitz, his heart does some weird flips. The problem is, he still thinks Fitz is a guy, leaving him completely baffled by his own feelings. Meanwhile, Rudeus tries to help Zenoba learn how to make his own sculptures. The plan quickly backfires. Zenoba's magic reserves are too weak, and his superhuman strength makes delicate sculpting impossible.
Spectacular! I believe that even I can learn this art!
Zenoba just isn't very good with his hands.
Fitz, ever practical and a little cheeky, suggests the obvious solution. Just buy a slave to do the work. Jeez. The trio heads to the local slave market, where they purchase a young dwarf girl and name her Juliet. Or Julie. She becomes Zenoba's servant, but Rudeus doesn't just leave it at that. He takes it upon himself to tutor Julie, teaching her magic, practical skills, and general life knowledge, all while she dutifully serves Zenoba. I mean, little Julie is living her best life at this point, but I honestly feel kinda iffy about how casually this series treats the issue of slavery. Oh well, moving on. In the following episode, Sylvie is finally getting used to life at Renoa University. Now that Rudeus is back in her world and she starts noticing something new, she might actually have feelings for him. About a month after Zenoba bought Julie, Rudeus has made serious progress teaching her. She learns basic magic and even how to cast spells without saying incantations. But trouble isn't far behind. When Zenoba shows Julie Rudeus's sculpture of Rudeus, Rudeus suddenly remembers another piece, the sculpture he made of Roxy.
Zenoba, this is an affront to my master and my goddess.
His memory quickly turns sour when Zenoba admits that back in his first year, he lost a duel to Linnea and Persena, who destroyed the Roxy sculpture. Rudeus does not take this lightly. Fueled by righteous anger, he beats Linnea and Persena in a fight and locks them in his room. Things get messy pretty fast. He leaves them tied up for so long that they wet themselves, which, unfortunately for Rudeus, means he's gotta clean up the mess. Not wanting to create a long-term grudge, he asks Fitz for advice on how to punish them without making enemies for life. Fitz comes up with a perfect, mischievous plan. Make the Beast Girls wear humiliating face markings for a day. The prank works, but Linnea and Persena leave with a grudging respect for Rudeus once they learn he trained under Jelaine. Oh, well, I guess all's well that ends well. In episode 8, Cliff nervously approaches Rudeus, asking him to introduce him to Alina Lise, since he's developed a major crush on her. Rudeus goes along with it, but Alina Lise quietly reminds him of her curse, the one that forces her to sleep with different men frequently or else her health will deteriorate. Rudeus, ever practical, tells her to just turn down Cliff's feelings. The next day, Rudeus is completely shocked. Not only did Alina Lise not reject Cliff, but she and the guy are actually in a real relationship. Cliff even promises to find a way to lift her curse. Rudeus just stands there, dumbfounded, realizing that he didn't see this coming at all. Meanwhile, chaos erupts at the school. The student beastmen start challenging Rudeus for the right to marry Linnea and Persena, having been misled into thinking he's now their pack leader. Rudeus doesn't even have time to process this, because before he can intervene, all the beastmen are crushed by Demon King Bodigatti, a constantly giggling monster with 6 arms, who just so happens to be Kishirika's fiancé.
Left laugh with me, boy.
Hearing Kishirika rave about Rudeus, Barigari has decided to step in and challenge him to a duel. The duel is intense, but Rudeus takes the victory strike perfectly, wounding Barigari and convincing the Demon King to concede. With victory secured, Rudeus probably thinks that he's done with all the drama. But no, that is not the end of it. He and his classmates are stunned when they find out that Barigari has enrolled at the university and is now in their class. What the? Does this university just accept anybody now? And who made that dude's uniform? Ugh. Just when you think life at Renoa couldn't get any crazier, it just shows you that it absolutely does. In episode 9, Fitz is still torn about whether to reveal her true identity to Rudeus. She's terrified that he might have forgotten about her. Ariel, seeing her struggle, nudges her to finally tell him the truth. With her blessing, of course. Meanwhile, Rudeus keeps diving deep into teleportation research and notices a lot of similarities to summoning magic. The only difference is that summoning calls things to you, while teleportation sends them away. Fitz suggests that he consult a summoning expert named Silent 7-Star. Rudeus goes to meet them, but when the expert turns out to be Nanahoshi, he literally faints on the spot, reliving the trauma of his death at Orsted's hands. Fitz revives him, and he starts having a conversation with the masked girl. Nanahoshi presents two Japanese names, Shinohara Akito and Kuroki Satoshi, asking if either belongs to him. Rudeus doesn't recognize them, and slowly realizes that Nanahoshi is someone from his own world, Earth. She removes her mask and introduces herself properly as Nanahoshi Shizuka, and Rudeus can't help but notice that she looks exactly like the high school girl he died trying to save. But here's the catch: Nanahoshi wants to find a way back to their original world, while Rudeus has zero interest in doing the same. He's fully committed to staying in this one. She explains her situation. Unlike Rudeus, who was reincarnated as a child, she was summoned to the fantasy world 5 years ago and hasn't aged a day since.
I have friends and family in this world.
Reincarnation, I suppose you'd call that. I was more or less teleported.
Orsted took her under his wing, and she's been studying summoning magic ever since, but she can't actually cast magic herself because she lacks the mana. Nanahoshi proposes a deal as follows. Rudeus will use his mana to help her experiments, and in return, she will share all the knowledge about teleportation. She also reveals a shocking possibility. The mass teleportation disaster might have been a side effect of the spell that summoned her. This revelation sends Fitz into a rage. She starts screaming at Nanahoshi for all the lives lost in the incident, including her own parents. Rudeus steps in to calm her down, and Fitz is surprised at this. She asks why he's defending Nanahoshi when he suffered too, but Rudeus explains that Nanahoshi is just as much of a victim. She didn't choose to be summoned after all. Fitz takes a deep breath and apologizes, finally calming down. On the way back, Fitz can't hide her relief that Rudeus has no romantic interest in Nanahoshi, but the bigger question still remains, whether she should finally tell them the truth about who she really is. Girl, just spill the beans already. In episode 10, Fitz can't stop feeling jealous. Rudeus is spending most of his time helping Nanahoshi with her experiments, and Fitz is too scared to tell him who she really is. Meanwhile, a year passes since Rudeus enrolled at the university, and he notices that all the other students are staring at him like he's some kind of legend. His fights against Fitz, Linnea, Persena, and even Barigari have made him famous. But when people suggest he take a leadership role, he just shrugs it off. Leadership? Nah, too much responsibility. One day, he gets an invitation from Soldat to attend a clan reunion.
I haven't seen you in ages, man.
Yeah, it almost feels like a whole lifetime ago.
After the reunion, he parts ways with Elenalise and Cliff, who are going adventuring to give Cliff some real experience. Back in town, Rudeus keeps running into Fitz, in the streets, in the library. He slowly starts noticing something strange. His feelings for her aren't exactly friendship. He begins to wonder if Fitz might not be male after all. Then it happens. Fitz accidentally falls on top of Rudeus. For the first time, he confirms what he had been suspecting. Fitz is actually female. Fitz immediately denies it and runs off, completely embarrassed, but Rudeus can't ignore it. He even notices, for the first time in forever, that he felt something in his lower region. Everything clicks. Fitz is female. She's right there, and she holds the key to curing his impotence. With that realization, Rudeus makes a decision. It's time to start a relationship with Fitz. Finally, all the awkward tension, teasing, and confusion might actually lead somewhere, and Rudeus's life is about to get a lot more interesting. In episode 11, Luke confronts Rudeus about what he's been doing with Fitz, but Rudeus acts completely clueless and makes it clear that he won't reveal Fitz's true identity to anyone. Meanwhile, Ariel decides it's time to have a serious talk with Fitz. Ariel tells Fitz that she's been patient and letting her take her time, but she's tired of the indecision. She pressures Fitz to finally reveal her true identity to Rudeus. Ariel reminds her that she still owes her for saving her life and that she's a friend, not a servant, and asks Fitz what she really wants. Fitz makes it clear. She wants to be together with Rudeus.
What I want is to be with Rudy.
Fitz is still nervous as hell, worried that Rudeus might not remember her as Sylphie, so Ariel and Luke come up with a plan to jog Rudy's memory. When Ariel asks about strong childhood memories with Rudeus, Fitz recalls that he thought she was a boy when they were kids, and how he discovered that she was actually a girl when they bathed together. Ariel fully supports her choice, but gives a stern warning. If Fitz fails to tell Rudeus who she really is, Ariel will use her authority as the second princess of Ashura to forbid her from ever seeing him again. Later, Fitz invites Rudeus to help her gather a rare flower deep in the Forest of Hail, in the middle of winter no less. They set off together, but Fitz secretly uses her ring to make it rain, soaking them both before they can find shelter in a cave. To avoid hypothermia, Rudeus strips off his wet clothes and suggests Fitz do the same. Fitz surprises him by insisting that he strip her instead. In that moment, Rudeus finally recognizes her as Sylphie, his childhood friend from Buena Village.
I mean, is your real name Sylphiette by any chance?
Yes, it is.
Fully reunited, Sylphie confesses that she has loved him for a long time and wants to stay with him forever. After all the teasing, hiding, and confusion, they're finally back together, just as they should be. In episode 12, Rudeus finally admits to Sylphie that he loves her too. But there's a problem. His impotence still isn't fully cured, so he can't be intimate with her just yet. Sylphie, determined to help, reports back to Ariel and Luke. Feeling sympathetic, Luke decides to help Sylphie find a way to fix Rudeus. He gives her a rare, powerful aphrodisiac that should counteract his impotence, while Ariel gives Sylphie some tips on how to seduce him. That night, Sylphie meets Rudeus again, and they both take the aphrodisiac. The effects work quickly, and finally, they are able to make love. The next morning, Rudeus wakes up and realizes Sylphie hasn't abandoned him. This moment gives him an emotional breakthrough. He finally overcomes the trauma caused by Eris leaving him, and miraculously, he's fully cured. Grateful and inspired, Rudeus pledges his loyalty to Ariel as a thank you for all of her guidance. And then he turns to Sylphie and asks for her hand in marriage. She happily accepts. Ariel releases Sylphie from the obligation to disguise herself as Fitz and formally welcomes Rudeus into her inner circle. Sylphie, overwhelmed with gratitude, thanks both Ariel and Luke for everything they've done for her. After years of chaos, misunderstandings, and heartbreak, Rudeus and Sylphie finally find peace and each other. In the following episode, Rudeus starts his day alone in his room, saying his prayers at the little shrine that he's set up, now upgraded with a proper offering box. I know some things never change, Rudy, but don't tell me those are still Roxy's panties. Anyway, during lunch, Rudeus asks Cliff and Zenoba for advice on what he needs before getting married. Their answer is simple and kinda terrifying. He needs a house. So off he goes to a housing agency where he finds a place he can actually afford. The good news is it's dirt cheap. The bad news is that the place is rumored to be cursed. Previous residents were murdered after hearing strange noises at night.
A scraping sound in the middle of the night, and apparently its previous residents were murdered inside.
Naturally, Rudeus decides this is perfect and asks Cliff and Zenoba to help exorcise it. The three of them search every room and floor, but find nothing. Since nothing explodes or screams at them at this point, they decide to stay the night and take turns guarding the house. That night, Cliff hears a noise and wakes the others. While searching again, Rudeus is suddenly attacked by the ghost, but Zenoba jumps in and physically restrains it. Even as Cliff and Rudeus attack it with magic, Zenoba keeps holding on, getting his club destroyed and his clothes torn in the process. In the end, the ghost turns out not to be a spirit at all, but a murderous, self-moving doll. They take it back to Renoa Magic Academy for research, with Zenoba enthusiastically volunteering to study it. With the curse gone and renovations finished, Rudeus brings Sylphie to see the house. They walk through every room together until they reach the master bedroom. There, Rudeus proposes to Sylphie once more, and of course, she accepts. In episode 14, having settled the wedding arrangements, Rudeus and Sylphie decide to throw a proper reception feast the traditional way. They plan to invite all their friends and classmates, and Sylphie personally makes sure that Elena Lise and Nanahoshi are on the guest list. No exceptions. A few days later, the wedding reception finally arrives. Most of their friends show up, and Bodygotti, of course, makes a dramatic surprise entrance right in the middle of Rudeus's speech, because subtlety is not his thing.
Just to say it officially, Sylphie and I—
Into the Demon King Bodygotti!
As the celebration goes on, guests offer their blessings. When Cliff and Elena Lise step forward to congratulate the couple, Elena Lise suddenly breaks down in tears. We discover that Elena Lise is Sylphie's grandmother. Huh? Well, color me surprised. Rudeus suggests that Cliff take Elena Lise upstairs to calm down, then jokingly whispers to Elena Lise that she's now related to Paul Greyrat after all, which was exactly what she never wanted. As the night winds down and guests begin to leave, Elena Lise is feeling much better. Sylphie talks with her privately, while Rudeus and Cliff speak with Ariel. Out of nowhere, Ariel announces that she wants Rudeus to duel Luke with swords. no reason is given whatsoever. At her signal, the fight begins. Rudeus charges first and lands a hit, knocking Luke's sword away. Luke stubbornly insists on continuing, but Rudeus quickly knocks him down before he can recover. Ariel then declares Rudeus the winner. Rudy just assumes that they probably want to make sure he can keep Sylphie safe.
I guess they wanted to find out if they can trust me with Sylphie's life.
That actually makes sense. Afterward, Ariel reveals her plan to one day return to the Ashura kingdom to either claim the throne or die trying. She asks Rudeus to stop Sylphie from following her when that time comes. After hearing Rudeus's answer, Ariel quietly leaves. Cliff later tells Sylphie and Alina Lise about the duel, and everyone settles back into the living room. Once Cliff and Alina Lise leave for the night, Sylphie mentions that she wants to grow her hair out. With the house finally quiet and the future ahead of them, the newlyweds head to bed together, ready for whatever comes next. In the next episode, Rudeus gets a letter from Paul with some strange news. Paul and his party are about to head to the Bejarit continent to search for Zenith. Since that place is basically the Demon Continent 2.0, Paul decides it's safer to send Norn and Aisha to live with Rudeus. As the eldest son, Rudeus immediately agrees and starts wondering who's escorting the kids. Meanwhile, Nanahoshi pushes her summoning research further by creating an even larger magic circle. Rudeus helps power it, but something goes wrong. The spell fails, and Nanahoshi completely breaks down, smashing everything in her room. Rudeus restrains her until she calms down, and Zenoba carries her to the infirmary. Seeing how shaken she is, Rudeus decides to bring Nanahoshi home until she recovers. At Rudy's house, Nanahoshi sleeps in the room meant for Rudeus's sisters. Rudeus starts realizing how little he actually knows about Nanahoshi, aside from the fact that she's from the same world as him. Watching her blankly stare out the window, Nanahoshi finally admits the truth. No matter what she does, she can't complete the magic circle for the summoning spell. Because of this, she believes she may never go home. Refusing to accept that, Rudeus gathers some help. He shows Nanahoshi's magic circle to Cliff, Zanoba, Julie, and Alina Lise. After struggling to fix it, Zanoba suggests using multi-layered magic circles, inspired by the cursed doll they dealt with earlier. And it works. Cliff also confirms that the spell can be repaired. Back at the academy, Nanahoshi sees the new design and instantly comes back to life.
This might work. Of course, I can see it now.
With everyone helping, she redraws the circle. When Rudeus pours mana into it this time, the spell succeeds, summoning a plastic bottle from another world. It's small progress, but it's still something. Nanahoshi is overjoyed. She apologizes for the trouble she caused and agrees to celebrate with the group. At the pub, the party grows even bigger, with Sylphie, Linnea, Persena, and Bodigatti joining in. As the night goes on, Rudeus reflects on how far he's come, from his old life to the one he's built now. When the celebration ends, Rudeus sees a sleeping Sylphie home and freezes at the entrance. Standing at the front door are Norn and Aisha. Aisha immediately tackles him with a hug, and behind them stands Rudeus, who turns out to be their escort. Oh yeah, I've missed this guy. In episode 16, Rudeus notices Rudeus standing silently at the front gate with Bodigatti. The tense stare between the two ends the moment Bodigatti spots Rudeus and walks away. When asked about it, Rudeus explains that they share an old history, likely dating back to the Laplace War. A giant war involving this Laplace fella we keep hearing about but haven't really been shown. Rudeus shrugs it off and invites Rudeus inside for breakfast before he leaves. After the meal, Norn announces that she wants to go with Rudeus. She still hasn't forgiven Rudeus for attacking Paul back then. Rudeus gently tells her not to cling to the past and encourages her to rely on Rudeus instead. Promising that they will meet again someday, Rudeus then takes his leave. Once things settle down, Rudeus formally welcomes Norn and Aisha to the Greyrat house. Paul has sent along a lockbox filled with money and valuables, as well as 2 letters. Following Paul's wishes, Rudeus tells his sisters that they will attend school. Aisha immediately refuses, saying she wants to be a maid to Rudy, while Norn also resists at first.
Why? I don't want to go to school. My mom taught me enough.
In the end, both agree to take the entrance exam. That night, Rudeus talks with Sylphie about Aisha's request to work as a maid instead of going to school. Sylphie doesn't object, knowing the house needs help, but she admits she's more concerned about Norn, who seems withdrawn and troubled. When the exam results arrive, Aisha proudly reveals that she scored perfectly. Accepting that Aisha truly doesn't need formal schooling, Rudeus allows her to help manage the house. Norn, however, scores below average and asks to live in the academy dormitory. Rudeus agrees, believing it might help her become more independent. This decision upsets Aisha, who feels Norn is being favored as Paul's legitimate daughter. Rudeus quickly reassures her, making it clear that he sees both of them equally as his sisters. A few days later, Norn leaves for the dorms. Rudeus gives her more advice than she can possibly remember and asks her to visit home in 10 days. Unable to hide his worry. Later, Rudeus, Sylphie, Ariel, and Luke find Norn completely lost on campus. Ariel orders Luke to guide her to where she needs to go, while Rudeus watches from a distance, still uneasy. When he later catches Linnea and Persena bothering Norn, he scolds them harshly, revealing that she is his sister and warns them that any repeat of this behavior will not be tolerated. Oh man, having a big brother to protect you in school is such an underrated privilege. And yes, I do speak from personal experience. As life at the academy returns to normal, Norn ends up alone in her dorm room, quiet, isolated, and struggling to find her place, while Rudeus can only worry from afar, hoping she'll eventually find her footing. In episode 17, Rudeus learns that Norn has locked herself inside her dorm room and hasn't come out. Furious and worried that she's being bullied, he marches across campus with Linnea and Persena trailing behind him, desperately trying to calm him down. He reaches Norn's classroom, steps inside, and gets straight to the point. He explains why he's there and asks the person responsible to come forward and apologize. After a long pause, a timid beast race girl with raccoon dog features raises her hand and admits she compared Norn to Rudeus. The teacher then adds that she also encouraged Norn to follow her brother's example after her poor grades. One by one, the rest of the class admits that they did the same. That's when Rudeus understands the real problem. Norn isn't being bullied. She simply hates being constantly compared to him.
It was my fault. People have always compared her to Aisha. Now they're doing it with the brother she hates.
Outside the classroom, Rudeus is visibly shaken. He knows why Norn won't leave her room, and he can't figure out how to reach her. With help from Linnea and Persena, he somehow sneaks into Norn's room. Inside, Norn sits silently on her bed, wrapped tightly in her blanket. The sight hits Rudeus really hard and drags up some horrible memories from his past life of locking himself away, ignoring his own brother's attempts to help, and watching that brother eventually give up and leave. So Rudeus sits beside her in utter silence. Norn finally unpacks her feelings in an emotional inner monologue. She admits she's been afraid of Rudeus ever since she saw him attack their father. I mean, when you think about it, it's always a bad look when someone attacks their parent. And then when she came to Renoa, the fear only grew, because Rudeus seemed cheerful while their mother was still missing. I mean, who does look happy when their mom is missing. She tried to stay quiet about everything, afraid of being kicked out of the house. When Rudeus allowed her to live in the dorms, she understood the reason, but it still hurt that he was okay with her living away from him. Then, school made everything worse.
Yes?
Tell me something about your brother.
I don't want to.
Teachers and classmates constantly compared her to Rudeus, and the pressure, fear, and frustration piled up until she couldn't take it anymore and shut herself inside her room. But then again, despite all the reservations she has about her brother, she remembers what Paul and Rudeus once told her, that Rudeus isn't the person she believes him to be. And then suddenly, Rudeus apologizes, sincerely, not as a famous mage or a talented brother, but simply as family. Upon hearing that apology, Norn finally breaks down, crying into Rudeus's chest as he holds her and refuses to repeat the mistake of his past life. The next morning, Norn's mood has clearly improved. Sylphie is relieved and Rudeus is quietly amazed. Norn managed to do what he never could in his previous life, accept help before it was too late. And deep down, Rudeus decides that if Nanahoshi ever returns to Earth, he'll ask her to send a message for him, to apologize to his older brother and thank him for trying to save him all those years ago. Damn. This was probably the most emotionally intense episode so far. In episode 18, Rudeus spots Norn walking with her friends and waves at her. She smiles back before hurrying ahead to rejoin them, a small moment that shows how much their relationship has improved. Later, the siblings work together on a book about Rudeus, part of Rudeus's long-standing plan to restore the Superb tribe's reputation. Rudeus quickly realizes that he's stuck, having only written about Rudeus's intimidating appearance. Norn steps in to help, explaining that Rudeus once told her about his past.
Richard told me a lot about his past while we were traveling here together. I could probably write some good stories.
Feeling relieved, Rudeus accepts her help as long as she keeps up with her studies. At the academy, Nanahoshi explains the stages of her summoning magic research, starting with objects and eventually aiming to send living beings back to their original world. As thanks for helping her complete the first stage, she gives Rudeus a rare magic circle scroll that summons lamplight spirits, an incredibly valuable spell unknown to the Magician Guild, and promises an even greater reward once the next phase succeeds. For Rudeus, life settles into a calm routine of training, research, helping friends, studying with Norn, and returning home to Sylphie. Then, everything changes when Sylphie tells Rudeus that she's pregnant. Overjoyed, Rudeus shares the news with the family. Norn congratulates them. Aisha admits she's already spread the word, and Alina-Lise takes over Sylphie's bodyguard duties. For the first time, Rudeus feels like he truly has the peaceful family life he's been chasing. The feeling doesn't last very long, however. A letter arrives from Geese, asking for help in rescuing Zenith. That night, Rudeus meets the man god in his sleep, and he blames the guy for discouraging him from going to the Bejarik continent. Apparently, man god warned him that if he goes there, he'll regret it.
I can't avoid regrets. That's the deal.
Regret is inevitable, no matter how hard you try.
Rudeus wakes up shaken, but when Sylphie worries over him, he promises he'll stay here and protect their future. Still, the doubt lingers. I mean, this is his mom we're talking about. Rudeus seeks advice from his friends. Alina-Lise agrees that he should stay, but decides she'll go instead. Zenoba tells Rudeus to choose for himself and promises to protect his family if he leaves to find his mother. No one gives him a clear answer, only reassurance that the choice is his alone. The decision is forced the next morning when Rudeus finds Norn fully packed, ready to leave in his place. She's crying, desperate to help their parents. Rudeus refuses, knowing she wouldn't survive the journey. Seeing her frustration and helplessness finally breaks him, so Rudeus makes his choice. He tells Norn to stay home and watch the house. This time, he will be the one to go and find his mother. About damn time. In episode 19, Rudeus finally commits to his decision. At Renoa Magic Academy, he tells Alina Lise that he's heading to the Bejarit continent to rescue Zenith. After some discussion, she agrees to travel with him, though leaving Cliff behind clearly weighs on her. Rudeus suggests using Cliff's curse-suppressing tool to manage her condition during the journey and encourages her to properly talk things through with Cliff before they depart. Rudeus then visits Nanahoshi and informs her that he'll be gone for up to 2 years. She's startled at first, but quickly regains her composure and hands him an invaluable secret: a map of ancient teleportation circles scattered across the world. One of the circles, located near Sharia, the magic city of Renoa Kingdom, can send him close to Bejarit, cutting the travel time down to about a month. But because teleportation magic is forbidden, Nanahoshi makes him promise to keep it secret and reminds him to come back alive so they can continue their research on summoning magic.
Thank you. I owe you one.
No, you don't. But we do need to keep working, so you'd better hurry up.
Back at the Greyrat house, Rudeus tells his family about the journey. Aisha reacts in shock, Norn falls silent, and Sylphie accepts his choice despite her obvious fear. When Rudeus casually brings up naming their unborn child, Sylphie panics, believing it's a bad omen. Rudeus calms her by reaffirming his promise to return, sealing it with a kiss, while Norn and Aisha avert their eyes in embarrassment. After obtaining a leave of absence from the school management, borrowing books about teleportation and Bejarit, and buying a large black horse, Rudeus prepares to leave. Cliff arrives with a smaller, improved version of the curse-suppressing tool and entrusts Alina Lise to Rudeus, promising to marry her when she returns. Rudeus and Alina Lise reach the teleportation ruins in Lumen Forest. They activate the ancient circle using Nanahoshi's instructions and are transported straight to Bejarit. Alina Lise tests the return trip to make sure they don't get stuck mid-teleportation, while Rudeus explores the ruins and unexpectedly finds one of Orsted's spare coats. Stepping outside the ruins, they're greeted by an endless desert, confirming that they've arrived in Bejarit. They press on through harsh conditions, battling monsters along the way. A succubus nearly ensnares Rudeus with its charm before Alina Lise swiftly takes it down, snapping him back to his senses. They continue forward, fighting deadly scorpions, surviving sandstorms, and taking down griffins through tight coordination and overwhelming magic. At last, Rudeus and Alina Lise reach Rapan, the Maze City, ready to begin the true rescue mission. In episode 20, Rudeus and Alina Lise finally reach Rapan, the Maze City in the heart of Bejarit. Rudeus wants to reunite with Paul's group as soon as possible, so Alina Lise suggests starting at the Adventurers Guild, where either Paul or Geese is bound to be. The moment they arrive, they spot Geese, currently failing to recruit a beast race man and getting rejected outright. When Alina Lise calls out to him, Geese turns around and freezes in shock at the sight of Rudeus.
Oh! Alina Lise, you're here!
Sorry it took so long.
He can't believe how fast they arrived. It's only been 6 months since he sent the letter to Rudeus, and he expected them to show up in another 6 months. Teleportation hack for the win. Inside the inn, Paul hugs Rudeus tightly. He then breaks down, apologizing for failing to rescue Zenith. Rudeus reassures him that this is exactly why he came. Paul takes a moment to look Rudeus over, noting how much he's grown, only to be shocked again when he learns Rudeus is about to become a father. When Paul sees Alina Lise, he drops to one knee and apologizes for some unspecified past mistake. Alina Lise admits she shares some blame and helps him back up. When Paul asks how she survived the journey despite her curse, Alina Lise casually explains that she's using a curse-suppressing tool made by Cliff, her husband as she calls him, leaving Paul completely stunned. Paul then explains their situation.
Zenith is trapped in a labyrinth a day's journey north of here.
Zenith is trapped in the teleportation labyrinth. It's been 6 years, and even now, they don't know if she's still alive. The mood darkens when Rudeus asks about Roxy. Paul explains that she disappeared a month ago after stepping into a teleportation circle. Rudeus panics, fearing the worst, but Geese and Tolland insist that she could still be alive. That's when Rudeus pulls out a book he borrowed from Renoa Magic Academy, titled An Exploratory Account of the Teleportation Labyrinth. Geese flips through it and immediately realizes that it contains detailed information on how to clear the labyrinth, even the deeper floors. Hope surges through the group, and Paul begins planning their rescue mission. The next day, the rescue mission begins. At the entrance of the teleportation labyrinth, the party forms up. Rudeus takes over as the main magician and healer. Alina Lise becomes the frontline tank. Paul serves as a secondary attacker. Tolland supports as both mage and fighter, and Geese scouts ahead. The rest of the group remains in Rappan to manage supplies and support. Inside the labyrinth, Rudeus and Geese use light spirits to illuminate the tunnels, earning praise from Tolland and a rare moment of pride from Paul. Rudeus explains the dangers of teleportation circles that don't glow, so the group follows the special cross-shaped footprints Geese leaves behind. Their first major encounter is a tarantula deathlord, which Paul rushes in and slays instantly, clearly showing off. Soon enough, they reach the teleportation circle to the second floor, guarded by swarms of tarantula deathlords. After Tolland warns against using fire or destabilizing the cave, Rudeus unleashes powerful ice magic, wiping out the monsters and earning praise as Roxy's true apprentice. The group steps onto the circle together and descends. As they push onward, they hope Roxy might be on the third floor. When they arrive there, Rudeus suddenly stops, sensing something is wrong. Elsewhere on that same floor, Roxy is fighting desperately. She holds back waves of monsters with earth walls and ice spells, but exhaustion catches up to her. Her defenses crumble, her staff is knocked away, and monsters close in from every direction. Panicking, she cries out for help and shuts her eyes, convinced that it's over. When she opens them again, the battlefield is silent. Everything around her is frozen solid, monsters trapped in ice like statues. Then she sees Rudeus walking calmly through the frozen corridor toward her. Relief floods over Roxy as she realizes her student has finally come for her. In episode 21, Rudeus is so relieved beyond words that he pulls a stunned Roxy into a hug without even thinking. She shoves him away, embarrassed and annoyed, saying she smells terrible, but Rudeus couldn't care less. She's alive, and that's all that matters. With Roxy rescued, the party decides to retreat to Rappan so she can recover. Tolland carries her on his back while Rudeus walks behind, quietly realizing just how much time has passed since he last saw her. Roxy admits that she didn't recognize him earlier. The little boy she once taught and the man standing before her feel like two completely different people.
I didn't connect the cute little Rudy that I remember to the way you look these days.
Well, that's what puberty does to you. A few days later, Roxy apologizes for the trouble she caused, but Paul immediately shuts that down and tells her to thank Rudeus instead for smashing through the labyrinth to save her. Rudeus accepts her thanks, then asks her to call him Rudy, just like she used to. To him, she will always be his teacher. Okay. Geese explains their plan to re-enter the labyrinth soon to look for Zenith. Paul hands Roxy the labyrinth guidebook and preparations begin once again. After several days of going in and out of the labyrinth, the party makes their way through the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th floors. The 6th floor seems to be the last one. In the final room, they find 3 teleportation circles, but the guidebook offers no answers beyond this point. Rudeus analyzes them and explains that one is a trap while the other 2 are a gamble. Still, something doesn't feel right. Rudeus realizes that the room feels familiar, just like the ruins that once led him to Bejarit. He asks Geese to check for hidden stairs stairs. After tapping the floor and listening closely, Geese finds a hollow spot. Rudeus destroys it with magic, revealing a concealed staircase.
All right!
I mean, it's really no surprise that a labyrinth would have a secret floor. With renewed hope, they descend together. At the bottom waits a teleportation circle, glowing a deep, ominous blood red, a clear sign that the real danger is only just beginning. In the next episode, after resting on the 6th floor, the group prepares to move again. Geese suggests the turning back for now, but Paul refuses. Everyone checks their equipment one last time. At Rudeus's request, Roxy hands him several healing scrolls and promises to back him up so he will not need them. Paul tries to say something important to his son, but Rudeus tells him that they can talk after they return. That's never a good sign in shows like this. With that, the party steps into the teleportation circle and descends to the 7th floor. They arrive in a vast hall and immediately see the Labyrinth Guardian, a massive hydra. Inside a glowing magic crystal nearby is Zenith. The moment Paul sees her, he charges without waiting for the others. Geese shouts for him to stop, but it's too late. The battle begins in utter chaos. Rudeus and Roxy launch spells to support Paul and Elena-Lise, but their magic vanishes before reaching the Hydra. Paul manages to cut off 2 of its heads, only for them to regenerate almost instantly. Elena-Lise blocks a heavy attack and is badly injured. Tolland and Roxy try to create openings, but nothing seems to work. Later, as they calm down, they begin to analyze the fight. Roxy identifies the monster as a manatite hydra, a legendary creature whose scales absorb magic. Magic can still work at very close range, but the hydra's rapid regeneration is the real problem. Rudeus then recalls an old myth he used to hear about, that if a severed neck is burned, the head will not grow back.
I've heard that if you burn the stump where the head was cut off, it won't be able to regenerate.
At least that's how Heracles did it in Greek mythology. Not that ancient folk tales are a particularly credible source.
The plan finally takes shape, and the party agrees to try it out. They return to the 7th floor and face the Hydra again, this time with a clear strategy. Paul leads the attack, dodging with precision and cutting off heads one by one. Rudeus stays close, burning the wounds immediately to stop regeneration. Elena-Lise shields Rudeus from deadly blows, while Tolland and Roxy support from the sides. The teamwork slowly turns the tide until just one head remains. When the final head lunges at Rudeus, Paul kicks him out of the way and takes the hit himself. Rudeus recovers and confronts the Hydra head on. He strikes its eye and finishes casting his spell, losing his left hand in the process. Roxy incinerates the last head, and the Hydra finally collapses. Feeling relieved, Rudeus uses healing magic to restore his arm, though his hand doesn't fully return. As the dust settles, the party falls silent, looking in Paul's direction. Paul lies on the ground, but his lower body is gone. He looks at Rudeus one last time, relief in his eyes, and then his life fades away. Damn, that's awful. Moments later, the crystal holding Zenith cracks and shatters, releasing her unconscious body. The group leaves the labyrinth in silence, Tolland carrying Zenith on his back. No one has the strength to speak at this point. Back in Rappan, Lilia and the others welcome them, only to be struck by the news of Paul's death. Lilia quietly embraces Rudeus and tells him to rest. That night, Rudeus lies in bed, haunted by the memory of burning his father's remains. 4 days later, Rudeus and Lilia sit beside Zenith as she finally opens her eyes. For a brief moment, there's hope, but when Zenith stares blankly and speaks meaningless words, Lilia understands at once. Zenith is alive, but her mind is gone. Damn. So not only does Rudy lose his dad, but he loses one hand, and his mother is suffering from some kind of brain damage? I guess Man God was right about him regretting going to rescue his mom. In the next episode, Rudeus finds himself thinking about his past life, about the parents he lost back then, and how he never even bothered to visit their graves. The guilt hits harder now than it ever did before.
I barely loved my parents. It crushes me to think about how little I cared for them.
Back at the inn in Rappan, Rudeus sits alone, gripping Paul's beloved sword like it might answer to him. He has no idea how he is supposed to move forward. Roxy comes to check on him and invites him to walk around the city, but he refuses. Instead, she sits beside him and talks quietly about her time in Buena Village, the happiest days of her life. She reminds him that adventuring means losing people you care about, something she herself has endured. Rudeus snaps back in anger, saying she does not understand because her parents are still alive. The words hang in the air, and that's when it hits him. Even after being reborn and trying to live better, he still ran from family problems and avoided facing things head on. He is still the same person he used to be. Roxy gently tells him that Paul and Zenith felt like her own family too. Rudeus gets up to leave, but Roxy suddenly grabs his hand and pushes him onto the bed. She tells him to leave everything to her. In his broken, exhausted state, Rudeus gives in and they share a kiss.
Just leave everything to your master.
I really don't like this. Think about your wife and baby, man. The next morning, Rudeus wakes up beside Roxy. After getting dressed, they talk again, and Roxy tells him that the only way forward is to keep moving, because that is what Paul would have wanted. Out in the hallway, Elena Lise sees Rudeus and Roxy step out of the same room and instantly understands what happened. Roxy tells Rudeus to go speak with Lilia while she talks with Elena Lise. In Zenith's room, Rudeus finds Lilia feeding Zenith, who still stares blankly ahead. He apologizes for leaving Lilia to care for her alone, but she calmly tells him that this is her duty now that Paul is gone. They discuss Zenith's condition. Her body is fine, but her mind is broken. They believe the magic crystal caused severe magical damage, and Elena Lise has already said recovery is unlikely. Rudeus offers to help care for Zenith, but Lilia tells him to focus on his own responsibilities, just as Paul would have wanted. Rudeus agrees and suggests that they return home to the Renoa kingdom. The journey back home begins. While on night watch by the campfire, Rudeus confesses to Roxy that he loves both her and Sylphiette, and that he is already married with a child on the way. Roxy calmly tells him that she already knows. Wait, what? Apparently, Elena Lise told her everything. She admits that she chose to be with him while he was grieving. When Rudeus asks how he can repay her, Roxy tearfully confesses that she fell in love with him the moment he saved her at the labyrinth.
You were the picture of my ideal partner. The entire time we were down there, I couldn't take my eyes off of you.
With Sylphiette far away and everyone else busy or planning to leave him alone, she did what she felt she had to do. She tells him she loves him and that she does not need anything in return. Another night, Elena Lise speaks to Rudeus. She urges him to marry Roxy, saying she cannot stand watching her suffer. Rudeus hesitates, haunted by the thought that he once called Paul a scumbag for having an affair with Lilia and is now literally walking the same path. Elena Lise reminds him that Zenith and Lilia were happy together in the end, despite everything. Loving two people, she says, might simply be his fate as Paul's son. No, dude, don't listen to her, bro. Later, Roxy joins Rudeus by the campfire. He thanks her, telling her that everything he survived was because of her teachings. Finally, choosing regret over cowardice, he tells her to take the name Roxy Greyrat and confesses his love. Roxy freezes, then regains her composure and says that they must first get Sylphiette's approval. And so, they agree to leave it there for now. As the sun rises, Rudeus rests his hand on Paul's sword and speaks quietly, as if his father can hear him. In the end, he admits the truth to himself. He really is his father's son. In the last episode, Rudeus bursts into his house and calls for Sylphie, but no one answers. He searches the living room and kitchen, his anxiety rising with every empty room. Then, he hears footsteps and rushes toward the sound, only to find Aisha staring at him in shock. He immediately asks if she is hurt, but she instead fixates on his missing left hand. Rudeus asks about Norn and Sylphie, and at that moment, Sylphie enters and calls his name. She reassures him that everyone is safe, and the relief nearly makes him collapse as she embraces him. Outside, the rest of the party arrives in time to see the reunion, while Roxy quietly turns away. Later, everyone gathers in silence around the dining table. Aisha returns with Norn, who has just come back from Renoa Magic Academy. Norn greets Rudeus and is relieved to see Zenith alive, but then asks where Paul is. Rudeus tells her that Paul has died. The room falls silent. He places Paul's gauntlets, beloved sword, short sword, and the jar holding his ashes on the table. Norn demands to know how it happened, but when Rudeus apologizes, she notices his missing arm and stops herself from lashing out. After Rudeus explains everything, including Zenith's lost memories, Norn breaks down, realizing that even if Rudeus could not save Paul, no one could have. So, Aisha and Sylphie comfort her as she cries. When Norn calms down, she asks to keep Paul's beloved sword. Rudeus agrees and tells her what Paul once said about the weight and responsibility of carrying a sword. Norn accepts it with trembling hands. Suddenly, Zenith picks up Paul's gauntlets and clutches them to her chest, silent and expressionless. No one knows if she will ever recover. Rudeus decides that Zenith will stay with them and that Lilia will care for her. Later, the rest of the group prepares to leave for an inn. Rudeus thanks them for everything they did for Paul. Before leaving, Alina Lise tells Sylphie that Rudeus truly loves her. She then gives a knowing glance to Roxy and departs with the others. Rudeus then tells Sylphie that he needs to talk to her, and they go back inside. After Lilia takes Zenith upstairs, Rudeus reveals that he wants Roxy to become his second wife. He explains how she saved him when he was drowning in grief, then kneels and apologizes to Sylphie for breaking his promise of staying loyal to her. Norn explodes in anger, berating Rudeus for hurting Sylphie and grabbing him by the collar over his unfaithfulness. Rudeus defends Roxy, but Norn refuses to listen.
You should be ashamed of yourself for barging into their relationship! Get out!
Rudeus nearly loses his temper, but holds back. Roxy then admits her wrongdoing, apologizes, and tries to leave. But before she can, Sylphie calls out to her. Roxy turns back in tears. Sylphie calmly acknowledges that Roxy helped Rudeus, even knowing her feelings were involved. She admits that she would have done the same in Roxy's place, and says she already understood that Rudeus would one day bring home another woman. Seeing Roxy as someone who truly loves him, Sylphie welcomes her, and the two agree to support Rudeus together. Later, Rudeus spars with Norn outside using wooden swords. Norn is still angry and reckless, but Sylphie reminds her that Paul himself had 2 wives. Sylphie then reveals that the baby will be born in a month. Roxy says she will wait until after the birth before marrying Rudeus. A month later, during heavy snowfall, Sylphie gives birth with Lilia and Aisha assisting. The baby does not have green hair, easing Sylphie's long-held fear. She asks Rudeus to hold the child, and as she tells him that the baby is theirs, Rudeus breaks down in tears of joy. Later, Rudeus visits Paul's grave. He clears the snow, pours drinks, and talks to his father, telling him about the baby, Lucy Greyrat, and about marrying Roxy. He realizes that Paul always understood his feelings and had been trying to guide him. Reflecting on his life, Rudeus understands that despite his memories from another life, he is still growing up. Now, as a father, he must keep learning, making mistakes, and moving forward. With a promise to bring the whole family next time, he leaves the grave behind, determining to live a life without regrets. And that's the end of the recap. I still maintain that Sylphie deserved better than becoming a co-wife, but that's just me. Anyway, feel free to click on the video on screen to watch another one of my videos, and in the meantime, peace!